There's a wail, not like the wind, but not quite like a person either. The woodsman turned adventurer whips her head around, looking towards the sound. There's nothing but more mushrooms. She grips her axe tighter, rubbing her wife's thumbprint in the painted sigils. She creeps closer and closer to the sound. Her hands are damp with cold sweat. She stares intently into the murk, and her foot falls through the ground and into open air. The woodsman stumbles into a ditch, then bones clack all around her. The screams. The screams sound very human now. Hiya, I'm Ink and welcome to my Nook. Hope y'all took a break recently, and if you didn't, take a few minutes and just breathe a few times. It'll help you feel a little bit less stressed. As y'all might have noticed, things are a little bit different around here. I wanted to spruce up the place while on my break. Hope you enjoy. Now, for those of you who are new to the Nook, welcome! This is a series I call Dungeon Deck, where we make strange creatures for TTRPGs, including a monster card with art, stats, ability names, and core phrases. Now with that all out of the way, let's get started. As always, we start with the art prompts. So here we draw 7 cards and select 4 to use for our monster. Now, this isn't a very cohesive set. Scissors, spine, mushrooms, and whatever that collection of bones is. All right, what do you think we can make from this? Well, at this point, we're not really going for anything, well, even remotely typical. There's no creature I know of that we can take inspiration from, so we're winging it. Starting out with the spine. Let's set that as the core of the creature to build everything else on top of. Give it a little wiggle along, just to have some fun with it. Next, let's give this thing a head. Since we got rid of all the normal heads, we have to get creative. And, well, okay, I have a terrible but maybe awesome idea. Let's make those scissors into some kind of face. The blades could turn into ears, the holes could be eyes. Yeah, this totally won't turn into a horrifying monstrosity. Well, okay, that's not much of a face on its own. Let's start putting on some more features. Maybe a nose, a mouth, and... Oh no, okay. Let's do something else, maybe with one of the other cards. Let's hope that it makes it look less like that. All right, we can use the middle bones from the crossbow thing to make a leg. Well, that didn't help the overall thing. Okay, how about the mushroom? Maybe that'll be cool to put in there, but where? It doesn't really fit anywhere on the body. We can have it on top of the mushroom. That works, and it gives us a good size reference. Nice. At this point, we have the basic shape of the sketch. I'll do a little bit of shading, then scan it in to do some digital work, but at this point, I'm not holding out too much hope of making this less creepy. For now, let's move on to the lore. Maybe we can explain away the creepiness. First things first, what the heck is this? Like, what kind of category of creature is this? Obviously, like, magical and malicious. I mean, look at it. But what flavor of evil is it? Initially, I thought it could be Fae, but that's not quite right. Fae aren't evil outright. They're not evil because they have bad intentions. They just have such different rules that they end up evil in our eyes. So no, this thing has malice in its heart. Well, the heart that doesn't exist. Okay, naturally evil things. How about demons? Yeah, let's just say that this is a demon or devil, depending on how you split those things. But it's not a strong one. Let's say that it's around the power of an imp. Not physically or magically powerful, but definitely has a few tricks up its sleeves. Next, let's figure out the body. Like, how does the body work? This thing is just kind of made from bones, but that doesn't really give much room for a typical reproduction system or diet. Well, how about we combine the two? This thing could take the bones of people and eat parts of them. And then maybe it could eat in a very particular way to carve sigils into the bones. Those sigils could then be activated and imbue the bones with life, changing the carved calcium into a cavalcade of creepy creatures. But how does it get the bones? How does this little demon hunt? I like the idea of a pack of them infesting some kind of mushroom woods and luring people into ambushes. It could do this by maybe imitating human sounds, maybe a scream in the distance, a call for help, or even a threat. Get the fear up, and then when the target is about to run, pounce all over and tear them apart with those sharp legs. Maybe they have some stingers depending on what bones they get. It all depends on what bones are available, actually. Their whole body depends on that sort of structure that they can harvest. Looking at this creature specifically, I think it was made from, well, probably a pixie. How else would you get a spine of that size? Thinking of their origins a little bit deeper, it's strange that someone would make something like this. Like, sure, it's a deadly trap, but it feels half-cooked. Like a plan not fully thought through. Only bones? Most predators in the meat space eat as much of their prey's bodies as they can, but this creature is so wasteful, not using any of the meat at all. On top of that, the animating sigils wouldn't last long without a larger power source, especially if bone doesn't contain much magic. Actually, going into fantasy as a whole, bone doesn't tend to be the thing that contains magic, but instead something that channels it. Like a bone staff is topped with a gem, not more bone. So this thing would have a really short lifespan of, let's say, a month. How about this? What if the creature wasn't necessarily the first option? That's why it's like half cooked. This was only a temporary backup plan. Maybe the demonic forces that created this originally had a plan for a more permanent threat, but they didn't end up finishing it. So that led to these creatures becoming a continual feature. It's like the popular saying in IT. Nothing's as permanent as a temporary solution. I think that's a good setup for this creature. Also, credit to Random Commenter and Karma the Kettengrad for their suggestions on this creature's lore. On stream, they gave the starting suggestions for the lore that helped shape this monster. So if you want to have input on these creatures, feel free to drop by the stream this Sunday at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. And while we're at it, if you've gotten this far, how about you drop a like and subscribe to see my video and stream in your feed every week? And if that doesn't work out, feel free to unsub at any time. Now, for the question of the week. If you were one of these creatures, what 5 bones would you want to be made out of? This will be like with individual bones, so entire structures like hands would go over the limit. Let me know the answers in the comments below. Now, back to the video. Alrighty, let's grab the monster card and start filling it out. Beginning with the name. This is another thing from the stream. Yig. Feels like one of those weird names you'd find in a homebrew D&D advanced zine from like the 90s or 80s. Next up are the abilities. Let's start out with that imitation ability. The Yig is all about misdirecting and luring its prey into a horrible situation before a pack pounces on them. But also, the design falls right into the uncanny valley. The space where it's so close to human, but it doesn't look quite right and becomes horribly creepy. So let's blend that in. All from the uncanny valley. Specifically, this hits on the behavior of imitating people that need help or are trying to get the attention of this prey creature, and treating the uncanny valley as like a place. Yeah, that just seems fun. Then we have that bone carving reproduction cycle. I like the word scrimshaw. It's perfect for this situation too. It's the art of carving into bone. Usually it refers to the works made by like whalers and whale byproducts, but we can repurpose it to our little monster. So let's call it scrimshaw animation. Scrimshaw as a word also feels like somewhat slapdash or shoddy, getting across the idea that these things don't last long. Even though the art is actually very long lasting. In fact, I have a little scrimshaw piece passed down by my grandfather through my father. Finally, let's allude to the Yig's sharp little bone splinters and horde tactics. Let's call it swarm of bone needles. Love the image that this gives, like a mass of these little things jumping all over their prey to get at the bones. Next up are the stats. We'll be using the 5th edition stat spread, but the numbers on the card will refer to the modifiers rather than the total value. Strength will go to a -2. Yig-Yags are tiny and can't really put out much force with how little magic is powering them. Constitution, -3. Really, these things would be at only 1 health. We had an entire section of lore talking about how they're really janky and wouldn't last long, so yeah. Dexterity. This can go to a 2. These demons are skittery little monsters and are great at sneaking around, especially as they hunt their prey. Intelligence. Nothing special. The Yig-Yags have that 1 spell built in, but not much else. So let's say a 0. Wisdom. This has a little to do with their decision making and how they choose to misdirect people, so let's give them a 1. Charisma. Finally, this is where the Yig-Yags really shine. Charisma will go to a 3 as they use this for their calls and creepy mimicry. Overall, the Yig-Yag is extremely weak on its own, but with its allies in the right environment, they can set up a pretty deadly ambush that could kill even the toughest of enemies. Finally, we have the core phrases. These are a set of statements or questions that help characterize monsters and guide DMs on how to play these creatures in a unique and interesting way. The bones! We need the bones! The primary motivator for the Yig-Yag is to constantly get more bones. They have such a short lifespan that there needs to be a constant stream of new demons just to make sure they can take down their targets. Fear dulls the senses. Use that! A big part of the Yig-Yag's hunting strategy is to scare their prey witless, make them tunnel vision, and then pounce when they're at their most unaware. Sure, the target will fight harder, but that only matters if they survive the initial assault and can actually hit the Yig-Yags. Set the trap, then attack in droves. This solidifies the Yig-Yag's ambush and swarm tactics. Since these demons are so small and weak, they would be easy for most prey to squash. But working as a team to tip the scales and make the environment work for them is what makes these creatures so effective. Alrighty, these course phrases set up a horrifying encounter through the mushroom forest. Like, just imagine your players being sent to rescue a lost child, only to hear something that's almost a child's cry, but is just a little bit wrong. They follow the voice, only to fall into a small gorge and get swarmed by a bunch of these monsters. Some even made from the bones of a child. Oh, they would be paranoid for months. And that's that. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this week's video, despite the Yig-Yag's horrifying visage. It's good to be back from my trip, and I'm excited to keep ramping up things for you. Just as a reminder, I'm now streaming on Sundays at 1 p.m. Mountain Time, so drop on in to be a part of the monster making process. With that, let's bring this video to a close. For those of you with dark skies, good night. And if you have bright days, good morning. Whatever part of the world you're from, I hope you have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, and night. Goodbye!